All right, let's get right into it. Think of this as your strategic briefing for the CompTIA Security Plus SYO-701 certification. We're going to cover exactly what you need to know to pass this exam and really get your cybersecurity career started on the right foot.
So, first question is always, is it worth it? Let's talk numbers. The average starting salary for someone holding the certification is over $88,000. Now, when you compare that to an exam cost of about $400, well, the return on that investment is pretty incredible.
Okay, here's our agenda for this briefing. First, we'll talk about the credential itself. Then, we'll deconstruct the SY0701 exam so you know exactly what you're up against. We'll break down the 5 core domains, lay out a strategic preparation plan, and finally, look at where your career can go after you're certified. So, why do you hear so much about the Security Plus? Why is it considered the absolute cornerstone for an entry-level career? It's simple, really. It's the baseline. It's what employers and government agencies look for to validate that you have the foundational cybersecurity skills they need. You know, with over 700,000 people certified, Security Plus is pretty much a global standard. It helps fill a huge skills gap in the industry and, this is critical, it's DoD 8570 compliant. That means for a ton of government and defense contractor jobs, this certification isn't just nice to have, it's a hard requirement. Now listen closely, because this is important. The old exam, the SYO-601, it's obsolete. Forget about it. The current exam is the SYO-701. It's been streamlined, sure, but the biggest change is the massive emphasis on practical, hands-on application. I'm telling you, using outdated study materials for the 601 is probably the single biggest mistake you can make. It's a surefire way to fail.
Okay, let's deconstruct the exam itself. You have to understand the operational parameters of the test just as well as you know the content. Think of this part as your threat assessment for test day. Here are the facts. You're looking at a maximum of 90 questions in 90 minutes. Do the math, that's about 1 minute per question. The questions are a mix of standard multiple choice and the much trickier performance-based questions, or PBQs. To pass, you need to hit a score of 750 on a scale that goes from 100 to 900.
Time management is absolutely crucial here, especially because of those PBQs. They're these little simulated tasks that show up early in the exam, and they are designed to eat up your clock. So the strategy is simple. If a PBQ looks like it'll take more than a few minutes, you flag it, you move on, you nail all the multiple choice questions first, and then you circle back to the flagged items with whatever time you have left.
All right, let's get into the core intelligence. The exam is built around 5 key domains of knowledge, and understanding how these are weighted isn't just helpful, it's fundamental to building an effective study plan. The focus of the exam is crystal clear when you look at the numbers. Security operations makes up a whopping 28% of your score. So if you study every domain equally, you're actually under-preparing for the biggest, most important section. You have to align your study time with these weights. Let's take a closer look at that biggest domain, security operations. This is what most entry-level pros do day to day. You absolutely have to know the 6 phases of incident response, in order. You need to understand the digital forensics order of volatility for collecting evidence. And you've got to be able to look at log data and figure out how an attack is happening. Coming in at number 2 is the threat landscape itself. The exam isn't going to just ask you for definitions. It's going to give you scenarios and expect you to identify the specific type of malware, or the exact social engineering tactic being used, or the vulnerability from the OWASP top 10. It's all about applying what you know. Okay, enough theory. Let's translate all this intelligence into an actionable plan. Here's a structured 8-week execution strategy that's designed to build your knowledge logically and, more importantly, efficiently. You'll notice this plan is weighted, just like the exam. We start with the foundational stuff in domains 1 and 5. Then we hit the big ones, the attack and operations domains. But look at the end. The final 2 weeks are dedicated entirely to practice, drilling those PBQs and scenarios, and hunting down your weak spots. This is how you pass on the first try. To succeed, you also have to know what not to do. These right here are the most common reasons people have to retake this exam. Using old materials, ignoring those domain weights, and just memorizing answers from practice tests, that's not going to cut it. You have to understand the scenarios to pass the real thing. Look, passing the exam is the immediate goal, but the certification is just the starting point. Let's talk about the career trajectory that Security Plus really opens up for you. This certification is your key. It unlocks access to a bunch of foundational roles. We're talking cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, IT security specialist. These all become very real possibilities with the competitive starting salaries to back it up.
Remember, Security Plus is the foundation. It's not the final building. From here, you specialize. If you're into defensive work, the blue team, then CISA Plus is your logical next step. If you're into cloud, you start looking at vendor certs from AWS or Azure. And for those interested in offensive security, you start building towards things like the OSCP. When it's time to validate what you've learned, you need to use practice tests built specifically for the SYO-701 blueprint. Look for resources that give you realistic, scenario-based questions because that is hands down the most effective way to know if you're actually ready for the real exam.
So there you have it. This certification is the foundation for your entire career. You have the blueprint for the exam, and you can see the career paths that open up afterward. The only question left is, what are you going to build next?